We should be live now, gentlemen.
You're live. Hey, did you Twitter us that we're live yet?
It should tweet when I click the broadcast. I think that's how it has it all set up. I'm not sure because.
Oh, hang on. Maybe if I check my Twitter,
I did it through the long view. It auto broadcasts in the long view, and I tried to tag you, TC. Martin, I couldn't find you on Twitter. I'm not. I tried.
I don't really do Twitter.
Okay, I didn't think so. So I tried to search
the only person who voiced Twitter like the plague
by your actual name, so I didn't find anything. So I was just like, oh well, we won't worry about it. And plus, it's also tough to fit all those things into so many characters. Twitter's a new thing. Twitter's interesting. It's like, I don't know. all the different
like painting a big target on you, man. It's like, here I am, take your shot.
What? Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter.
I don't know, man. I've never seen negativity on Twitter. Like,
oh my God, you haven't been on Twitter then.
I guess I don't. Yeah, for me, Twitter is entirely tied to the hobby. And as soon as somebody starts, like, as soon as I get a comment that's like, "Oh, this game that you're talking about being great is terrible," it's like, well, whatever, dude. Move. I'm moved on. I'm over this. I don't care if you. I'm not like I have 140 characters to defend myself. I'm not going to, right? I just like if you want to say that, go right ahead. Whatever. The thing that gets me though is the down thumb on YouTube. So please, whoever's watching this, which currently at 0 viewers, as you watch this, please click the down thumb. I saw a recent video of a family being reunited with their home after the hurricane. And there was like 3 thumbs down. It was like thousands of thumbs up and 3 thumbs down. And it makes me think, like, what's wrong with you people? Really, what is wrong with you? We're not ready.
It's like on
that's the type of thing that we're going to be disapproving of. So
it's like on Facebook for a while. It's like, someone posts something. It's like some horrible thing. It's like, should I like this?
I do kind of like how Facebook now has reactions, where you're like smiling, laughing. It's like that way somebody can post something that's like bad and you're like, oh no, not just like.
Yeah.
Here you go, buddy. Yeah, that's right, man. I hope you like
that cancer works out for you.
Oh boy. Well, the official start in 3.
All right. Give us an intro.
3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Long View Podcast. Here we're going to take a deep look at a little game or group of games, the microgame Invasion, as they are being called. And we've got an extra special guest who is, as I was saying earlier, the most contributing of contributors, Martin Griffiths. How are you doing today, Martin?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Martin, this is your first time on the Long View since Jeff Gamble passed it on to myself and TC. But with Jeff, you have quite a storied past. Would you like to just introduce yourself for those listeners that maybe haven't heard all of the Longview archives, which you totally should, especially Martin's episode on Kingdom Builder. That was gold. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, so I'm QWERTY Martin on BGG. I've done, I think I was saying 5 or 6 episodes with Jeff, Kingdom Builder, a couple on Knizia games. He's my favorite designer, Tigris and Euphrates, and Ra, Hanabi we did, and Pax Porfiriana. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing them with Jeff, but glad he's handed over to you guys, and you're keeping the show going strong.
Thank you much. Glad. Great to have you on here. Yeah. And I am Joe Sallin. I've been a part of this for a few months here, but before it was me, it was Jeff and TC. TC Reed, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Had a great weekend of gaming. I'm excited to talk about some micro games. I don't think these games get a lot of attention. So this should be an interesting podcast here.
Especially not for this type of a podcast. This type of podcast tends to just gravitate towards heavier games. And I especially was interested when Martin said that he would like to do an episode on this type of game, because to me it's like it's a formula that's not really been touched on the Longview. Very interested to see what all different dimensions of micro games we can talk about, including, of course, Love Letter itself. Just a few moments of business here, a few things of business, get out of the way. First of all, love to have you guys follow on Twitter. However, though, the Longview Podcast Twitter is kind of now a joint effort between myself and TC, and generally going to be used mainly for like tweeting out when we're having shows and things, because we're both maintaining our own personal ones. You can find me at goodboardugly. That's board spelled like a board that would hit you on the head, BOARD, on Twitter. And then TC, you are the Tattered Board. TC's the Tattered Board, so just at Tattered Board, also spelled BOARD, just like in mine. So find us both on Twitter and join the Longview Guild on Board Game Geek if you're not a member. It is an awesome place where all kinds of participation and suggestions for new episodes, and when there's contests, you'll figure out about them there. There recently was a contest, and our winner was Alex Singh, who actually is he's in the works of being on an episode of the Longview here to talk about one of his favorite games. And he won a revised copy of the Longview, or a revised copy of Agricola, by tweeting a picture of a tattered board in his collection, which just so happened to be the original first edition of the Resistance. So we'll have upcoming contests and whatnot. Right now, it's a bit of a lull, but if you check out on the Good Board, the Good, the Board, and the Ugly, there is a contest right now. So anyway, head over there. If you're not listening to this 2 years in the future, by that point, I hope life's all good, and I hope that we're still doing this. Anyway,
I will still be doing it. It'll just be like, oh my God, we had that contest. That was a long time ago.
But if you listen 2 years in the future, it's like anytime they dedicate towards contests, it's like, I really don't want to listen to this. I don't want to listen to a contest that happened 2 years ago. And, it's just something that I'm always like fast forwarding through when I'm listening to podcasts that are like backlogged. So anyway, you're not hearing about anything there right now. But I'd like to invite everybody to go to gamesurplus.com and purchase your games there. They're a great store. Carmen and Elaine have done some awesome work in terms of updating the website and making these games on amazing sales that are really affordable, low price for free shipping. And they've been sponsoring the Longview the Longview was like their first sponsorship. So, I mean, this is something that they've been supporting great content for a long time. And I want you guys, if you're listening to this, to go out and support them. Also,
hey, wait, just a second. Data is Game Surplus carrying Asmodee games now?
Mm-hmm.
I think they are.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, they weren't there for a while, but they are now.
Okay, cool. Plus,
yeah. Yes, definitely A+. Okay, I think you're what were you going to add to that, TC? Plus.
No, it's great. Plus, good. Plus,
it
great.
Is a plus.
Plus, get all your Netrunner stuff from them now. I don't know.
Well, Netrunner's got a new edition, so be careful buying all that crap right now. TC, what are you trying to do here? What are you trying to like liquidate all the old garbage that they've got now that the new edition of Netrunner's coming?
Sure.
Jeez, TC, jeez, just shame on you. Well, anyway, guys.
I'm playing games. I'm a terrible person.
No, you're not a terrible person. Just marginally terrible. The big thing, though, the big news that's just happened here in the United States, we had a couple of big disasters, and I'd like to say we don't have a Patreon or any way that you can donate to specifically support the Longview podcast. Please instead send any support that you would give to us. I'd ask every single viewer that if you support other podcasts on Patreon, whatever you support for them, please this month send that much to the Red Cross on behalf of the Longview podcast, because there's a lot of people that are in need. There's going to be a really big rebuilding effort, and appreciate you very much for your support. So anyway, guys, now that all is out of the way, let's go ahead and open up this discussion to talk about Love Letter. Martin, could you please tell us and all the listeners about your experience, your first experience with Love Letter, kind of where you got started with it, and what it is about Love Letter that draws you in and makes it such a robust experience in such a small package?
Sure. So I first heard about it just right before I was going to Essen in 2012. It's the only time I've been, so 5 years ago. And I was obviously checking out all the games that were going to be coming out at the show to see what I was going to be interested in. And I read about the original version of the game. The Japanese version was coming out at the show, and it sounded cool. It just sounded like a neat idea, just a small card game. I love card games anyway. Just 16 cards, but a really kind of social, fun experience. So I was interested in checking that out. And then I didn't figure it was going to be a big game at all, but then just shortly before the show, it was announced that AEG had picked it up as well, and they were going to be coming out with their edition at the same time, and that brought it to a much bigger print run, I guess. It wasn't just the Japan brand edition that was going to be there, so a lot more people were going to be getting hold of it. And so I picked it up at the show and played it that day when I got back to the hotel with a bunch of my friends, and we were just laughing. It's just such a simple idea. It doesn't take, it takes less than a minute to learn the rules. It's basically, you pick up a card, you play one of your cards, you do what it says. That's pretty much it, So you don't have to spend any time learning the rules, thinking about the rules. You're just straight away into that fun kind of social dynamic. It's got cards that target other players. It's even got player elimination. But it's just over so quickly that doesn't even matter if you're out of a round. So yeah, we just immediately were having fun with it and played it. Played a bunch of games in a row, and I just played it so much over the next few months after that. It was because it can fit into any time, right? It takes 10 minutes. It's just a perfect kind of filler game. And so yeah, that was my first experiences with it.
Joe, you're muted.
Thank you, TC. Yeah, there I am trying to talk. I even hit the button. I don't hit it strong enough. I'm trying to make sure that none of my other sounds. Wow. Well, thank you so much, TC, for taking this out or just leaving it in there, because that's probably what you're going to do. You're probably going to do that just to make sure, like, all this. Oh, no, this is going to be part of the montage at the beginning of the episode, won't it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what this is going to be, TC. That's it. He's going to use this. Martin, he's going to take all of our words. He's going to cut them up, and it's going to be like alphabet soup. And you're going to be endorsing some opposite view.
Yeah, you hate
original thing. Anything that you mispronounce, it's going to go straight to that montage. TC's got just a little bit of an evil streak to him. That's what we love about TC. So if you didn't notice, that was my expert way of taking the dumb feeling that I got from not pressing the unmute button hard enough and then pushing it all onto TC. Yay! Well, Martin, that was a really excellent introduction to the game, and it sounds like your experience with Love Letter coincided with when it first became available to a large audience, right?
Yeah.
And so it was originally published in Japan, right? Does your original version of the game at the Essen Spiel that you went to, which, by the way, man, just got to make it to 1. I still want to do that sometime in my life. Was that original version in Japanese?
No, so this was the first English version, but published by Japan brand. So it was it has the same art as the original Japanese version, which then AEG re-released later on as well. They, I can't remember what they called it, but they came out with the
Kenai Factory.
Yeah. So
black and white, like very black and white aesthetics.
Yeah, kind of just not black and white, but yeah, like an interesting kind of style to it. Very different from the AEG version, which is, kind of a bit more generic kind of medieval kind of thing. So I really like the distinctive artwork of that original edition. I much prefer it to what AEG went with, but I guess I can see why they did that, why that might appeal to other people. So but yeah, so it was an English version, but yeah, with that original artwork, and came in a cool little just in an envelope with a little sticker, they had little different stickers holding the envelope shut, like a little bear or a little heart or like a bunch of different things. It was really cute, like a really cute little package.
When you're buying a tiny itsy bitsy game, it is kind of an opportunity for them to make it a little bit cuter. So
yeah.
All right, so Martin, this game has been around then to a large audience for about 5 years or so, maybe somewhere in that general range. And this is actually, from what I understand, the way that this game plays has really bred, like, it started this sort of micro game invasion. So would you say that prior to this game, because you've been a part of the hobby for quite some time here, Martin, you've got a bit more of a resume than I do, as does TC. So TC, feel free to chime in. Would you say that micro games became a thing after Love Letter, or were micro games still a thing and Love Letter just kind of added a little bit of fuel to that fire?
I mean, I guess that games with not very many cards, small numbers of components, small cards. I mean, there are even traditional card games that use a small deck. You're only using like 20, 24 cards or something like that. So in that sense, it's not completely new, but I hadn't really heard it being used in that way, that microgame term. I know microgames has been used as a term in the past as well, though, but I think referring to something different. Like there were small war games, I think in the 80s maybe, that were known as microgames because they were much lower complexity than the other games that were around. But that's obviously a different sense. But in the way that we tend to use it in the hobby now, I think Love Letter was, kind of popularized that. And the other one that came out at that same Essen was Coup, which is, also, I think, one card fewer. It's 15 cards, Love Letter 16 cards. So I think the two of them together kind of made it more of a, made it seem like more a movement. So I guess that was where, people started talking about the micro games, and then more followed. So
yeah,
that's really interesting. I'd
like
never thought of
Coup. And then was it Sail to India? It was like a confluence of them. And I think Love Letter is probably the most popular of all of them, obviously, since it's like 15,000 editions of it. And when AEG originally got it, they themed it to another setting, like the Tempest universe or something. It's like the sole survivor of that. Because that thing just completely dropped off. Those other three games in that series.
Wasn't it like Dominaire was one, and then something about Canali or something like
Katari Arty or something. Yeah, that whole thing just went away, except for Love Letter, and they just rethemed the heck out of it.
Yeah.
So,
but they actually did like provide a backdrop and a story. So that's something I noticed when I first bought Love Letter, which I believe was in 2013. So not too much after when you got it, Martin. And I do remember playing Sail to India at Origins convention in, I believe, 2014. But the thing about it is, in the back of the rule book for the AEG version that I still currently own, there's like all these different biographies of the different characters and some sort of backstory. Is that something that was present in any capacity in the original version that came from Japan brands? Japan brands?
Yeah, so I mean, not the whole kind of universe thing that AEG went with, but there are some little descriptions of the characters in that Japanese edition, and they're pretty funny because they're translated, and some of the translation hasn't quite worked out, and so they're
so especially cute. You're saying?
Yeah, they were amusing to read as well. Yeah.
I mean, it does like provide a bit of a backdrop for why the cards behave in their specific way. So I think we've talked a little bit about the backdrop, specifically a Love Letter. Martin, would you tell us specifically what you're trying to do in a game of Love Letter? How do you play? And
you want kisses?
Yeah. So the idea is that you're trying to get your love letter to the princess, and there are 16 cards, 8 different types, and most of the cards there's one each of the higher cards, 2 of the middling cards, and 5 of the low cards, the ones. And on your turn, all you get to do is you have a card in hand, you draw a card, and then you play a card, either one of the 2 that you have in your hand, and then you do what it says. So each of the cards has an action, and the actions will be things like make another player discard a card or swap a card with another player. And the aim is to either eliminate all the other players, in which case you're the only one left pursuing the princess, so you win the round, or when you've gone through the draw pile, which doesn't take very long because there's only 16 cards, whoever has the highest card left in their hand wins. So it's all really about those special powers, and some of them, the princess card itself is the highest card, so it's great if you can have that at the end, but you can never play it. You can never discard the princess, or you immediately lose. So you have no choice of which card to play once you have that card. So that's kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, and to add the backstory to the princess, it's because if you give the letter directly to the princess and anybody figures out about it, she becomes very nervous and like tosses the letter into the fire. So yeah, other cards will behave in different ways. I mean, I think that really, Martin, I think there's enough time here. It's a small enough game. Like what every card does is a pretty important part of what the options are in the game. I think the fact that each card has a number on it, which is its strength at the end of the game, but then also an ability, gives you a little bit of choice there. So would you agree with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's nice to end up with a high card, but yeah, you've got you've got the choices of whether you're going to try and eliminate the other players or just survive. So there's some interesting powers, like the most common one, the number ones, and they have different names in the Japanese edition and the AEG edition as well. So I'm probably going to say some card names, and you're going to be like, what? Which one's that? Because they all have, apart from the princess, they all have different names between the two editions. But yeah, so the number ones, which are soldiers in the original, I think they're guards in AEG, will let you try and guess what another player has in their hand. So kind of seems like you have very little to go on there, but I think one of the nice things about the game is the more you play it with the same group, and the more you get to know how each other play, the more you can watch the little tells people have. Then you do have those little pieces of information to go on that can help you make a good guess.
Yeah, an educated guess. Definitely, there's more. There's a lot of card counting as well, and when there's only 16 cards, you can do quite a bit of card counting. It's not that hard to count either,
because they have this player aid that tells you how many of each card is in the deck.
So and all the cards that have been played stay face up on the table as well, so you can always look around to see what's gone. There's one card taken out face down at the beginning, so that you can't have perfect information when it gets to the end of the round, which is important. But apart from that, you really can try and track the cards, and I think that's kind of an important element of a lot of these micro games, is because there's so few cards or components, you can start to do that. You can keep in your mind where they all are and where they might be and who's got what. I think that gives them a lot of their characteristic feel.
Hello.
Okay.
Did we lose Joe? I think Joe went away. Man, he's having some issues. I got this frozen face.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we have to hang on. We got something here. Hey, I think I got some internet. Well, I'll just have to go on. Hey, I think I got some internet. Okay, I got a cover for Joe. Okay, sweet.
Oh, we've got another copy of Joe now.
We have Joe now. We have Jojo. I got two Joes. You're muted again.
I lost the internet for a few seconds, guys. I'm really sorry. I texted TC as quick as I could, but it was like you guys just froze on my screen, and I was like, oh, no. Well, at least it looks like the Google Hangout here picked us up right away. And wherever you guys were at, I think the last thing that I remember being said was... Crap. Is that? Am I not? What is it showing up as my picture? Is it showing up as like the long view?
We've got you. You're good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. I hope that this didn't happen. Too bad. Hello. Let's see. Yeah, I'm still the Longview podcast in the chat. Okay, great.
It's still Longview.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it didn't
Still Joe.
do
We're all good.
shuffling with all my Google accounts. I now have like 3 or 4 of them that I use on regular basis. It's like a headache. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. So you were talking about the last I heard was about the the way that that one card was being left out, and I think it froze right about then. So did you guys continue that discussion, or did you guys also get sort of kicked out and left
we were trying to figure out what's going on with you.
Okay, all right. So we could probably pick it up right about there and be okay. Does that sound all right?
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. And you just mentioned here, Martin, that there's one card that's been left out of these 16. What kind of function does having that one card set aside leave you in terms of how the gameplay flows and how the game may or may not end?
So what it does that's important is that as you get down to the end of the draw pile, because all the cards that have been played are face up on the table, if you had everything in every game, then you'd know pretty much everything by the end, especially if it's down to 2 players by then, which it very well can be because players have been eliminated. Then you'd be able to figure out exactly what the other player had at the end. It would become perfect information. So having that card face down just stops that problem. But I was just saying, I think as well, the fact that you can almost track all the cards because they're face up on the table, and I think that's something that's quite important about a lot of these micro games, because they're few components and they're easy to track. I think that gives them a lot of their feel, because a lot of it is about trying to figure out who's got what card. Why is he acting that way? Is it because he has this one? And there is that kind of bluffing element to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So each of these cards can either help you to get the best card, because at the end of the game, whoever has the highest card wins.
Oh, man.
Is he gone again?
You lost Joe again. This is going to be a micro episode. I'll be piecing this together. Holy crap. Oh, so how's your day? You like Love Letter? Love Letter's awesome. I think it's a great game. It's some cards. It's a red bag. You try to get kisses. It's great. Oh, well, let's see here. My experience with the game is a rep actually brought it in at the game store I was at. And she had this little red bag. And of course, it's like that velvet bag, right? Mm-hmm. That really, it just throws this bag out, says, here, try this game. I think you guys like it. It was an AEG rep. And me and the store owner, we looked at it and went, really? You got some cubes and some cards in a velvet bag. Wow. Okay. And it was surprising how fast the game caught on and how many people enjoyed it. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the ridiculously of the theme, where you're trying to get kisses. Whoever has the most kisses wins the game. So when you take a cube, you got to make the sound effect, right? So, like, oh, the princess loves you.
Anybody? Hello? I've never had this happen on my connection before. I literally just recorded an episode of my video review series, the sound coefficient of Voyages of Marco Polo. Made it through the entire thing, no problems. I do not know what's going on right now, guys, and I really deeply apologize. Mostly I apologize to you, TC, because you're going to have to fix this. But I'm also very sorry to you, Martin, because I'm not meaning to be rude and drop.
It's probably going to be the most disjointed episode we're going to have, which might be fun, or maybe a short one. A micro episode for a micro game.
My wife is just outside talking on the phone, not even using the internet. So it is not like I've got everything closed right now except for just the pop-up chat and the Google Hangout. Like I'm running here on just nothing. It's just something weird going on. I don't know.
There's bees on your internet cable line. What's going on?
I hate you.
You hate me? I hate you too, Joe.
Martin, I get stung by bees. By the way, they weren't bees. They were wasps. I had a guy come out and look, and he thought they were bees. But he wasn't that experienced of a beekeeper. And then he took a picture of them, sent it into a group, and they just turned out being like ground-dwelling wasps. So then I went back, and oh yeah, I opened up a can, like a literal can
Raid
on them. Yeah, flying insect killer, man. I massacred those wasps too. Oh yeah,
You're a bad person.
Like they just kept on coming too. They kept on like apparently somebody sounded the alarm, but they kept on just coming right to the hole, and I just like sat there like just straight down. Anyway, oh boy, I swell up really bad too, Martin. So the last time I recorded one about a month ago or so with TC, and I like my leg and my hand were both like.
It was epic. It was like he was swelling up. You might want to go to the hospital or something. It doesn't look.
And I was like, no, this is cool. This happens all the time. And because it kind of does. I mean, if I ever get stung like on my face, I'm going to the hospital, right? But like if it's on my finger, I'm fine.
Where were we? Love letter.
Is a good question. The question I was trying to get at, I think I was the one talking when I started to cut out.
Yes, you were.
I just heard UTC say this might be a micro episode, and then all of a sudden it's like, and there's just no more sound. And I was like, oh man.
Bye, Joe.
Yeah, here I go. So what I was saying is that there is 2 different ways to win in a game of love letters. So is it cool if I pick up there, guys?
Go for it. I'll throw it together. It'll make some type of sense. I'm not sure.
Hopefully it'll just be like easy, clip it from one to another, and I'll just, me saying 3, 2, 1 will be able to do it. I mean, I know that it can be a pain in the butt when you've got everybody's track. But anyway, 3, 2, 1. So in Love Letter, there is actually 2 different ways to win the game. You can either continually try to draw or hang on to the highest valued card in the round, and if all players are left in the round at the end, they'll all compare cards. Whoever has the highest card wins. However, there is another way to win, and that is by being the last person standing. So, Martin, in your experience in a game of Love Letter, what percentage do you think actually gets to that last card and reveals and you actually have that ending where the highest card wins? And what percentage would you say end in a last man standing, last woman standing?
That's a tricky question. I'm going to say maybe around 50-50. Like it probably depends on the number of players as well. Though I pretty much have mostly played it with 4 anyway. But yeah, I guess something around there. Maybe a bit more likely that elimination wins than making it to the end. But yeah, maybe around 50-50.
Sure. So do you think that this is a choice that generally is player dependent or group dependent, meta dependent, or do you think it's more dependent on just what options you're given by what you draw? Because you have a 50, there's 2 different choices essentially on each turn, correct?
Yeah, I guess some of it may be a kind of a meta thing. You get interesting things happening where, for instance, in my group, it would just get to where we'd always be guessing the same card when we play those guards and soldiers. It was like we'd always guess. Well, it's the wizard in my version, which is
what's that number?
The prince, number 5.
Okay.
And then that does interesting things to it, because then you're like, I can't hold on to this stupid wizard because I'm gonna guess then. So I have to play it, So there's silly things like that happen. And yeah, so it can kind of depend. I had one game where one guy had been eliminated twice in a row without even taking a turn. So then we were like, well, we're just gonna make it so that he doesn't get to take a turn in the whole game. And it's that kind of game. It's not really about who wins. It doesn't matter. It's a game about being silly, and it gives you the opportunity to do those kind of joke moves rather than like, oh, I must do the exact move that will maximize my chances to win the game. And there are some, I've seen some analyses. There's a review posted on BGG where someone tries to analyze it like that. They had like a grid of the card, the 2 cards you're holding and which card you would play in each situation. When is there a real decision and all this? It's like, what? I mean, that's not what the game is about. So
is it the same guy who analyzed Terra Mystica?
Could well be. Yeah.
That Terra Mystica breeds an analysis like that.
Yeah,
Like that's the type of analysis that I want to see for Terra Mystica. And I'm going to point the finger at you here, Martin, because you made an analysis like that in Kingdom Builder, where you analyzed every single scoring card in the game. But that was so rewarding. Whereas if you turn that same sort of lens and look through that same sort of lens to Love Letter, it really doesn't hold up. I think that what you said really rings true with me. It's more about, it's most entertaining when you're at the higher player counts, because then there's just more cards that are out, that are unknown, and there's more things that happen before your turn comes around. Because you almost want there to be some sort of a change in game state before it's your turn. The 2-player game of this, which I've tried a couple of times, is just not very entertaining. There's not enough things that happen between your turn and another player's turn. And thus you end up kind of just sitting there like, okay, well, I'm going to guess again, and I don't really have any idea still what you have. A lot of games will end up in a 1-versus-1 ending because players have been eliminated down to this. And I would say that Martin, if you're talking a 4-player game and you did a percentage on how many ended in 2 players or less, that would probably be significantly higher than 50-50. I think that 2 players, you might get into the point where 2 players have actually compare their cards. But in most cases, I would say there's going to be at least 1, if not 2 or 3 people that are eliminated in any given round. And a lot of times it's because you made a clever decision, and the clever decisions aren't always there, because if you look at it with that fine-tooth comb, there are some automatic decisions, and there are some automatic suicide decisions. There's one specific late-game suicide decision where if you draw the last card and you either had the king or the princess and you draw the other one, which is numbers 6 and 8, then you are literally losing the game. Because if you play the princess, you lose. If you play the king, you're giving the winning card to the other player. And that, though, only happens in that very last round. And I think that's why people are so much more accepting of that specific instance happening in Love Letter. There is times when your choice is illusory, when your choice is not really a choice. But there are definitely some times when you can do something clever. And the fact of the matter is there's such little overhead here in Love Letter that if you get anything out of it, it's like, holy crap, I invested no time into playing this or learning it. And it's kind of cool, It's got something there. It's got a little bit of bluffing.
Yeah, and I like those little pieces of information, like you say, that you can get, and because your brain is not being taken up at all by remembering the rules, so the only thing you've got to focus on is, well, what little pieces of information can I pick up? Like, why did he, would he have chosen that card if that was his other card? And so there are definite things you can pick up on. And like the one of the cards, the number 3, you have to compare secretly your hand with another player's hand, and the
Baron, yes.
the lower one loses and they're out. So it's always hilarious if you do that. You're thinking, great, I've got the princess. This is going to be brilliant. I can knock someone out, and then they have the number 7. So now they're out, but they put their 7 down, and everyone knows.
You just gave information,
yeah. So it's just like little things like that.
It's like a big resource in the game. Like it's pretty much the only resource in the game besides your cards. And the way that you can read into discards, like they're not always as obvious as that. Like sometimes it's just like, oh boy, a very Pyrrhic victory, like you said. Like now he knows I have the princess, and with the fact that the deck is skewed towards those 1 cards that allow players to get others out by guessing, you're basically in no man's land at that point. So definitely very interesting to think about it from that perspective. So in your experience though, Martin, when are you going to play Love Letter? And another question, you mentioned it's a really great filler and it plays in 10 minutes. Do you usually just say like, we'll play Love Letter until we play something else? Because the rules actually say play until 1 player gets like a 4th victory. But I found that like if everybody is kind of winning equally, it can go on 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, so this was an interesting thing as well, with a difference between the versions. And this is a decision that AEG made that I don't think was really that smart of a move, where in the original version it just says play one hand, see who won, but and then it says as a variant you can play first to 2, then the AEG version came along and said with 4 players you play first to 4, with 3 players you play first to like 5, with 2 players you play first to 7 or something like that. And it does just make it too long. And we usually play first to 3, with half the length of playing first to 4, really. So, but it's not a game that you should carry on playing once you're bored of it. Just stop. We lost him again.
Did we? Good grief! Keep going. Sounds good. It's like just when you start getting interesting talking, he just like shuts down. It's like, oh, that's really cool. It's like, oh boy, he's out. Nope, is he in?
Oh,
there he is.
Oh, an empty chair.
Yep. Oh, wow. Here's my boy.
Hey.
Say hi, Liam.
Hi.
Hey. We beat Diablo, didn't we?
I beat
You
him.
beat Diablo. God, see, Joe.
And I'm going to the Angel of Death.
Yeah, Joe. We talked about StarCraft on one of his previous long views, and it got me jonesing for a Blizzard game. So I picked up Diablo 3 for my PlayStation 3, and we've been hooked on that dumb thing. Like, oh my God, I've sunk too many hours in this stupid game. It's like, oh, it's horrible. And then my daughter's like, hey, I want to try World of Warcraft. And, oh, there's another rabbit hole. I gotta stop. Joe's a bad person. Oh, well, should we wait? Should we go? I don't know where he went. Let's check my messages here. Oh, maybe got a message. He's resetting his internet. Oh, this is going to be some great beginning banter to put in on this episode. It's going to be hilarious. Okay, we are waiting. So what other micro games have you enjoyed playing besides Love Letter?
So some of the other Japanese ones, there's one Kobayakawa is one, and Hanamikoji. Have you seen that one? I guess that kind of qualifies as a micro game as well, a 2-player game. That's neat. I wasn't really that keen on Sail to India, but
yeah, my wife wasn't too keen on that one either. I thought it was pretty interesting, but I tried breaking it with my group, and they're like, "Yeah, okay," and we moved on.
Yeah.
The new one, Lego City.
Okay. Yeah, but would you? Let's see. There was it seems like this micro game thing. It like they seem to be like all Japanese.
Yeah.
Games. What's the one where there's like it's like really simple. It's like 6 cards and you're trying to bid for geisha in the middle.
Yeah, that's Hanamikoji. Yeah,
I played that one. That was talk about reducing a game even further than Love Letter, man. That one really.
I really like that one. I think that's a really interesting game. But
you there, Joe?
I'm here.
Hey.
What other Japanese macro games have you enjoyed?
I just heard you guys talking about Hanamikoji, and
Yes.
that is just such an excellent example. Here's the thing, though, that Hanamikoji does. It's only 2-player. So, it's more about the fact that you're playing cards in, like, sort of a different combination. Like, you're sometimes having to play cards for your opponent, sometimes having to, like, it's almost like you're choosing the least awful way to play these cards. And I really do like the way that it's sort of like almost a mixture of battle line, but it brings it down to like micro game level. So like almost like Battle Line Love Letter-ish, but it's like Battle Line with more limited card play, but then I wouldn't call Battle Line a micro game, but I would call Hanamikoji a micro game. I think that's a really great example that you guys brought up. Also, Sail to India, the one that you talked about earlier, TC.
Yeah.
I did not like that game. Not
That's
at
the
all.
only one. We were talking about that. My group didn't care for it that much either.
I thought that like it didn't seem like a micro game to me. It seemed to me like they were trying to make a full experience with a small footprint. And I think the same sort of
Right.
thing happens with like these tiny epic games. And really, I don't feel like calling them micro games is very fair to either to micro games or to the games themselves, because ultimately I feel like they're very limited by what they can put in that box, and I feel like they try to get the most they can out of it, but it definitely isn't a micro game, especially not when I'm spending 2 hours like playing a game like the most recent one, Tiny Epic Quest, took me like 2 hours to play. So there was one that was called they got those little games that come in the packs of gum.
Oh yeah,
Those
those
games.
yeah.
They've got ones that are really, really simple that, you know, like, and they've explored a lot of different things. They've got ones that are as simple as like fly swatting, and they've got ones that even get as complicated as actually having a market, but everything fits into like the same as like a package
a stick of gum. Yeah.
of stick of gum. Yeah. And so those are quite interesting. There's also one really recently that came out called Mintworks that I've heard some positive responses, but generally those positive responses have come from the sources that when I listen to, I kind of listen to hear what games to steer clear of. If that makes any sense. Like the individual, like specifically, I'm not gonna say any names, but like the individual that I'm talking about, like generally prefers like gimmicks and things that are cute to show to brand new people, but that really don't hold any weight. And I think that Love Letter really is able to bypass this by giving it the best of both worlds. You know, I don't think that Love Letter is necessarily going to be the reason I go to a game night like, oh man, I can't wait to play Love Letter. But like, it's definitely more than just a gimmick. Like there's more there than just a gimmick. There's a lot of interesting interaction. However, the game that I'm talking about, the Mintworks, had like positive reviews come out from, I'm pretty sure from sources that are like, oh, it's so crazy. It fits into the size of a mint tin. It's so cool. You got to try it. It's really great. So
yeah, there's definitely been micro games that have absolutely backfired, and one that really backfired for me was Imminent Domain Microcosm.
really,
Wow, yeah, that thing took longer to score than to play that thing. Holy moly!
I heard it was hilarious, man. The rule book for that game basically didn't
mess.
teach you the game. It was awful. Like 2 guys in my game group sat down to play that one while they were waiting on other people to get there. And an hour and a half later, they just were like, this is not ready to play yet. Like, we cannot learn how to play this game. So, yeah, definitely that micro game didn't exactly go the way they were hoping for.
Yeah.
There was one that was really small. There used to be these I think it was Victory Point games that used to have the games in the envelope. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah.
Where they'd have like 3 or 4 games that come in an envelope. Do you have any experience with that, Martin?
Not really, no. I mean, I've played some Victory Point games, but not anything that's a micro game.
Okay. They didn't even have like a box or anything. It literally was just like an envelope, like a paper envelope that said on the back like what kind of game it was. I participated in a Kickstarter, my very first Kickstarter ever. This is back when I didn't really trust Kickstarter. Was for this land ain't big enough for the 2 to 4 of us, or something like that was what it was called. And it was, you know, the name was, it took longer to say the name than it did really to play the game. It just came in a bag, like a see-through Ziploc bag.
Oh my lord!
Had, like, a little tiny rules sheet in it, and you could pay whatever you wanted. You know, they suggested that you paid $5 for it plus shipping. They're going to charge you shipping, but like you could pay anything you wanted, $1 to $5. And so
Remember the old cheap ass games that came in envelopes?
That's what I'm talking about, not Victory Point.
Yeah,
Cheap ass.
yeah.
Right? That was what I was referring to.
My first cheap ass game I picked on was called Escape from Elba, where everyone was Napoleon trying to escape from Elba Island.
Yeah, when
was pretty awesome.
Like in exile.
Yeah. And you had to like provide your own
envelope?
components and dice. It just came with the rules and like very minimalistic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I just recently got a micro game that was literally just a piece of cardstock. And but it wasn't so much about the game in this case. It was after I think it was not Luda Creations. Which is was it Lautipolite? The one that got robbed at like Essen last year, I think. They got robbed, and so they had like $9,000 get stolen from a cash box, which was like way more than a small company can just afford to lose, you know. And so they made a Kickstarter game, and I think Paul Grogan was involved in the development of it. But they released it, and they said like it's $5 to get this. It's just going to be on a piece of cardstock, and it was called Steal This Game, and you have to produce your own like paper and dice and stuff. So that game, games that are literally just on a card have happened, but a lot of times they'll require you to produce some of the components, like you said, with the cheap ass games.
Yeah. Another, I don't know if you consider this a microgame or not, but one of the games I've always liked, and this was even before Love Letter, is you're gonna love this because it's a dice game, Joe. It's Quicks. It's just 6 dice, a pad, and pins. And man, every time I break this thing out with a group of people, everybody has a lot of fun with it. It's quick. There's actually some slight strategic decisions to make with it. And I don't know, every time I play with it,
that's much better than like Farkle or yeah, it's basically what I've heard is Quicks is better than Farkle. I've played Farkle. Yeah.
I have not had the privilege.
Well, you really should, TC. I would love for you to play Farkle.
Watch my brain explode. Yeah,
I don't think anything. I don't think it's going to inspire any sort of strong reaction. I think you're just going to be like, oh, okay.
but yeah, I opened up Quicks, and like it was from Game Right Games, and literally it's just 6 dice, and they're like different colors. But it's a fantastically fun game.
Yeah,
I was surprised how much gameplay is in that little box.
Hey guys, I thought I lost my internet for a second again there.
Hey Joe, you're still here. You're good.
I'm here. Good. So, did we get a chance yet to talk about the Love Letter versions, the 7,000 versions of Love Letter at all?
Does anyone have a favorite?
Well, hold on, Martin. I'm sorry to ask you to repeat yourself, but my internet went out right when you were going to say the difference between Love Letter and the AEG version and the Japanese version.
Yes, so I was just saying about, because you had just been talking about the length of the game and how sometimes it can go on, it could maybe a bit longer than you want it to if you're playing up to 4 first to win 4 rounds. Because you do have this incentive to stop the leader, and there are a lot of opportunities to target the leader. So then that means you're often going to get games which do end up being quite close. So you do play a lot of rounds. And this was a big difference between the versions, where I prefer the way they did it in the original. In the original version, it just says play 1 hand. And then it says, as a variant, play first to 2. If you want a longer game, play first to 2. When AEG then made it first to 4 with 4-player, I think first to 5 with 3-player, first to 7 with 2-player, just seemed to stretch it out too long. And I see a lot of comments from people on BGG who didn't like it, saying, "Oh, it goes on too long." And I'm like, well, you don't have to follow the rules that
exactly.
Stop when you're not having fun. Like
you only have to play it, once or twice, and so that makes so much more
sense. Did they call the game broken?
Yeah,
that's what I want to know. Did they call that broken?
It makes more sense to me to play it the way that you're saying, Martin, to just play one game after another, but what they're trying to do is everybody wants to try to make this little game into something big, like, oh, little tiny game, huge strategy. And it's like, no, just playing the same game over and over and over.
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of, I think that was a mistake, in that they were trying to kind of make it into something it wasn't. And then there's another one. Well, the only difference in the actual mechanics of the cards is kind of interesting as well. The number 7, the countess in the AEG, it's like if you have the countess and either the king or the prince in your hand, then you have to discard the countess, right? You have no choice. You have to discard the countess. In the original version, it's just if you have the countess, the number 7 in your hand, and the total of your hand is 12 or more, you are out. You're immediately out of the round. So that's why you can literally be out of the round just from drawing your first card. You just you get dealt the number 7, and then you draw the number 6, and you're like, well, I'm done. And that to me is because that rule is in there, you immediately realize this isn't a strategy game. This isn't a serious game. This is a game to be silly with. And I felt like AEG, maybe they realized that a lot of people they were going to be selling it to would hate that kind of a rule, and so they needed to change it. But to me, that was part of the fun, that just
drawing a card, boom.
Yeah.
Well, now the Countess is the most commonly accidentally cheating card in the game.
Right.
Oops, I totally forgot that was the special ability. I was just making a choice, and I didn't realize I didn't have a choice. So I understand why they changed it, though. To me, I see that change. I see why. The original change, or the change to make it about multiple hands and play to 4, like that, I'm totally on your side there, Martin. With that, just seems like a strange, like, play as long as you want. It's that type of a game. It's the perfect little filler to bust out and just play a couple of hands, and then whenever you're done with it, you're done. You're not stuck there like, well, it might end if he wins, it's over. But if she wins, or he wins, then it's going to keep going. So this could be another 20 minutes.
Yeah,
there's been a few games like that where it's like what's the one of the Yapur? It's like, you play like best of 3. It's like, we're just going to play it once and we're cool. We don't necessarily need to play best of 3.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. There's those games that have the best of 3. I understand it with, like, Tally Ho is a game, and it's asymmetrical, and it's one side is like the hunter and the other one is the like the animals in the forest, and the only, like, just the way that's structured, it's so asymmetrical that they say play one game is this, play one game is this, and then go from there. Basically, they want you to play both sides in an asymmetric game, but there's no reason to play the same game over and over again, play best of 3, unless they're trying to say, well, maybe statistics will even out from one game to the next. Especially in a game of Jaipur, I have had that happen before, where I've just been totally wrecked or totally given the game just by what I drew at the beginning and what I drew as the game continued. So I understand it, but I'm with you there, TC. Like, it's making a game into really more than it is in a lot of cases. So regarding the different versions of Love Letter, I've got here Munchkin Loot Letter, which is just a reskin. So if you like the art from Munchkin, or you like Munchkin itself, I have like 12 different copies of this game because I got it on a huge sale from an online game store, and I got them for $2.50 each. And the kids that graduate from my gamers club tend to really, really like Munchkin. And so this is a great graduation present, and I will not tell them when I give it to them that I got it for only $2.50. So, but it also comes like a Munchkin promo card that you can use with Munchkin, but it is literally just a reskin. But not every version of Love Letter is a reskin. TC, you have a little bit of experience with Love Letter, different versions of Love Letter?
Oh, yeah, we played the Batman one, and it was fine. I actually really like the Munchkin Love Letter, the Loot Letter, because I like putting the duck on someone's head. I love the duck card. That was always my favorite thing in Munchkin, is the duck card. I don't know why. And my kids actually request the Munchkin Loot Letter quite a bit. So that one hits the table. And it's like you said, it's an easy way to get people into the... I mean, you throw out Love Letter, most kids are like, whatever. But you throw out something like Munchkin or Batman, they're like, bam, that's going to immediately intrigue them and get them wanting to play. So I'm fine with all the different versions of Love Letter. I'm curious about the Cthulhu one. I think it's overpriced.
Unfortunately, I can't report on it. I was going to play it this last Wednesday and didn't get a chance to. With Love Letter, they did actually change the name of it to Loot Letter. What really surprises me is that many of these versions of Love Letter maintain the Love Letter name. Like, doesn't it sound bizarre to say Batman Love Letter?
It is. Yeah. Did they make like a wedding one? I remember that one caught some flack.
Wedding love letter? That sounds Why are you sending love letters to somebody's wedding?
It's like that one was bizarre. I remember reading.
I mean, I get it if you're in like the groomsmen or the bridesmaids, you're like catching the flowers or whatever, but not Not if you're sending letters to the bride. That's really bizarre.
I remember that one came out, and a lot of people were like just going bananas over it, going, "Okay, this is too far. They've rethemed this. It just went too far." I'm like, okay, as long as they're making money.
Yeah, I think that one of the changes for specifically Batman Love Letter was that you actually could get extra points by doing something different. So you win by points, like in the AEG version, the original version. But I think that if you're Batman is the 1 card, like the guards. So Batman tries to catch the 2 through 7 cards, which are all bad guys, except for number 4, the block card, the Handmaiden card is Robin. So apparently Batman can still catch Robin, though, if he's in somebody's hand. The thing about it is you actually get points for guessing specific bad guys. Like if you're the Batman and you catch the Joker, who's the princess, the 8 card, you get like an extra point, just for free.
There's bat tokens. There's bat signal tokens in that one.
Yeah, they're not cubes. They're not little red cubes like they're in the AEG version. So I think that's the only difference, though, in that version. Specifically, there was one version that had a very interesting choice, and that was Lord of the Rings, or I think it was called The Hobbit Love Letter. I think it was called The Hobbit.
Yeah, there's a Hobbit one.
There's a Hobbit one. And so generally in regular Love Letter, all the cards that have the same number are identical to one another. But they decided to get all creative with the number 3 card, the Baron card, the comparison card, the one where you compare your other card and one of yours is out. And one of them is higher card wins. The other one is lower card wins. And so you can literally just like there's a certain setup that you can get dealt where you just insta lose, and there's nothing that you can do. And I think it's what Jonathan was. The worst draw in Love Letter, the worst first draw is, or just any draw in general, is when you draw 2 of the same thing. You have no choice. You draw 2 3s. Oh boy, hopefully somebody's got a 1.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be comparing hands, and best hand wins.
Yeah. But I think I'm fine with all the versions. I'd be curious to see how much money this is raked in for AEG after licensing fees myself.
Adventure Time Love Letter is also a thing. So, I mean, you just take whatever you like, and there's probably some Love Letter version that you can easily make of it. Most of them are just cosmetic. The ones that they've tried to do some ambitious mechanisms have very rarely been that ambitious, and almost always had unforeseen consequences, because it really is just a very...
Oh, did he go away again?
Oh.
He did. Oh, he's gone. So let's just wrap up by saying all the versions of Love Letter are fine. Could you agree with that, Martin?
All the ones I've played are fine, yeah.
Yeah, I really have no energy around it at all. It's just, they are what they are, and they're fun. And I would never turn down a game of Love Letter, Loot Letter, Batman Letter, whatever. Because, like we said before, they're quick enough that they're over with pretty quickly. You don't have to play best of 12 or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Oh, well, while we're waiting for Joe, is there any other microgame that you've really enjoyed that you've played?
Khmer, have you come across that one? Khmer, or Elements it's called now. That's another 2-player one, but also really super simple. It's just 16 cards again, but they're just numbers, and it's a kind of bluffing one as well. Like you're just really super simple. But yeah, I tend to like those. I think the micro games that are just simple work a lot better than, like we were saying, Sail to India and the other ones. It just feels like they're trying to, squeeze a bigger game into a small format just for the sake of it. Like I prefer the ones that just stay simple.
Yeah, I agree. The ones that stay simple. Is there any ones that you're looking forward to that are coming out?
I don't know. I don't think I have.
Know either. I was just wondering if there's anything on the horizon. Yeah, there's these things just usually pop up, and we give them a shot when they show in. Like there was one called Renegade Games has been on this massive binge of making great games, and there was a trick taking game they called Fox and something or other. That was okay.
Yeah, the Fox in the Forest, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to try
okay.
that. Yeah.
It's a good rental. It's fine. It's just it's always kind of funny to listen to some of these guys talk and wondering like, yeah, they buy these little games wanting more. I'm like, guys, it's just a box of stuff, man. It's not that much to begin with. I mean, what were you expecting? You know, it's not like you're gonna get like an 18xx game and 15 cards and cubes.
Right.
Okay, goodness. I don't know where Joe wanted to go. Is there anything else you want to wrap up with before before Joe gets back? We may have to wrap this up because we're having some technical issues here.
Yeah. No, I mean nothing specific.
Okay. Anything you want to come back on the podcast to discuss besides Love Letter?
I'll have to think about it. I mean, I did I did most of the games I've played a ton. I kind of did with Jeff, or someone else had already done them. Like Innovation is a game I really love, but he already did an episode on that. So, I mean, there's been a lot of episodes now. It's getting harder to find something to talk about that hasn't been done before. But
yeah, I've been playing around with revisiting a few of them because I've listened to a few of them. Like, yeah, they miss some stuff here and there that I would like to discuss. You know. And there's been some games that have been discussed that I've played since then more times than been like, oh, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe's back. You back, Joe?
Oh,
Joe? Oh, he's not back. Wow. So sad.
Can
You there, Joe? Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm really sorry, guys. This is like
you guys won't be upset if this ends up being a 20-minute episode, would you?
Love letter, really bad. I really feel bad. I feel bad for the both of you guys that you're setting aside this time and that this is such an issue.
Yeah.
I've never had this happen since I moved. I've had my connection slow down and lag. I've never had this.
Hey, I got to talk to Martin. It's been great.
Yeah. You didn't have to worry about me interrupting you either. So there you go.
I just found this public. I don't know where Joe was going with this thought, but we're going to try to keep it from flying off the rails, and it goes off the rails anyway. We're just free fall. It's awesome.
That's where I would be taking you anyway. The last point that I think I was in the midst of making was that a lot of the love letter versions, when they try to do things, start to get away from how pure and simple and successful this system is.
The other thing that came out of it is the whole Lost Legacy series as well.
Oh, goodness gracious. What a great thing to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah, so they took that same basic idea of, it's 16 cards, there are different numbers that are associated with different powers. You draw one, you play one. So it's very much the same idea, but then they make it more complex because it doesn't just have that simple two-way, either everyone but one is eliminated or the highest number wins. If you make it to that showdown at the end, it's not just who has the highest number. You then have this investigation phase where you have to try and say where you think the Lost Legacy card, which is kind of the princess of the game, where it is, whether it's in another player's hand, is it in the discard pile? There's actually a separate pile.
The ruins, I think is what they call them.
Yeah. And then there's a whole bunch of different decks of Lost Legacy. I think there are up to like 8 maybe now, and you can also interchange them to create custom decks, and you can combine 2 together to play with more players. And I played a few of them, and it was kind of fun, but it was just a little bit. It lost that just pick up and play that Love Letter had, and it lost that the sort of the beautiful simplicity of it, where everyone just could pretty much straight away grasp all the powers. I mean, I guess you'd get that if you played any one of those enough, you'd kind of get back to that. But because there's just all these decks, it just feels a bit too much somehow. Like they just added a bit more complexity than you really needed in that game. But
I'm together with you. I wouldn't just give my like a sterling recommendation. I would say only really check out Lost Legacy if you've tired of Love Letter. Because the thing I do think it does well is it adds complexity and in some cases depth. In other cases just complexity. but it adds that without really requiring any more time. However, the rules complexity does go up. And so, I mean, your overhead there is not going to be so much in how much time you spend on it, but how much you have to consider. And I'm not sure that it really is any more deep than Love Letter, but some of the different decks do have some interesting qualities to them. Like, I would say that the Flying Garden Lost Legacy is almost a reskin, is almost a Love Letter version set in the Lost Legacy worlds. Well, I guess the other way around. It's like the same general concept of most cards in Love Letter, but played, you're playing actual Lost Legacy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like you got your card that gets people out, your card that protects. It feels very much in structure like the card abilities are very Love Letter-esque. But I do think that, like, if you're very interested in this game type, I mean, I even think that the Lost Legacy doesn't even have cubes in it, because they were just like, nah, you play this once and you're done. So they didn't have, the we have to somehow make this more of a game than it is. But I'm together with you that not everything that they've done there to increase its complexity wise is really rewarding in terms of gameplay. But Love Letter is definitely just by itself it is rewarding because of how simplistic it is, because of how easy it is to just pick up and go.
Yeah, if you want to play a Love Letter variant that just adds a ton of stuff, I've heard guys call the game by Cosmos called Brutal Kingdom.
No.
Yeah, that's like 2 decks of cards and same type of thing, and like all these different cubes that score. It's pretty cool, but it definitely is not as simplistic as Love Letter is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
interesting.
As we were talking a bit before about Sail to India and some other games where it feels like they're trying to, they're calling it a micro game, but it's really just a regular game, just squeezed into a small number of components.
They could have had a board that would have maybe made the game a little bit easier in some cases, but they specifically worked within a limitation that. Yeah,
and it kind of feels like that's more of it's an interesting challenge for the designer, but I don't know that it's really an interesting thing for me as a player. It's kind of, you're like, well, that's impressive. It's kind of like someone put a ship inside a bottle. It's like, well, great, but
I love that ship in a bottle reference. That is an amazing comparison, Martin. Yeah, it's a ship in a bottle, great, but doesn't. In this hobby, we're doing more than just admiring the game's production and what they were able to pack into a box. We're actually having to play these games every now and again, right?
Yeah, and so what I like about the microgames is that they're simple and that they have that simple structure, so that it's very easy to track the cards. So that it becomes all about playing the other players, like trying to get those small pieces of information they leave for you, trying to read them, trying to bluff them. Those are the ones I really like. And some of the others, like Anime Koji and Kobayakawa, several of them, mostly Japanese, or they have that feel to them, and I really like them. So yeah,
I'm right with you. I do think that most of the great micro games that I can come up with came from Japanese designers. I really think that it's almost just a cultural value of, making the game play well and be a small game, instead of just making the game play well and then later on go back. It's like the micro game has to be a part of the design process from the first moment, not, oh, I've got this design sitting on the shelf, I could make a micro game out of that.
Yeah. Although Sail to India has a Japanese designer as well, so what do we know?
Yeah.
There you go. Yep. You actually did your research, and I'm probably totally wrong about it. Yeah. I would say, though, Sail to India takes quite a while. Like, it's like a half hour type game.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not really what I think of as a micro game. So.
No, I did play one once called Bottle Cap Vikings.
Oh, that's another Tasty Minstrel one, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it came like free, almost free, with when I backed the Orleans the deluxe edition, and I actually kind of thought it was decent. I thought it was pretty decent. Like, it wasn't like a bad game. It was just that, like, it was the type of design that when I played it, I felt like I wanted there to be more to it, but because of the limitations of being a micro game, it just simply was meant to be, just barely, like, the system was interesting. I'd like to see the system actually and not a micro game, if that makes sense. And that's almost how I felt about Sail to India. Like there's some interesting decisions here, but because you've decided to make this a micro game, it's not that interesting because there's not going to be much variety to it. There isn't like any sort of aspects of silliness to entertain and to make it so that nobody's taking it very seriously, make it kind of more of a filler game. And so thus it kind of sits in a little bit of a dead spot. But for Bottle Cap Vikings, it really did have some interesting. I was surprised at how many unique and interesting new mechanisms were being used in this nice little setup and a tiny little box on the sides, on par with something like this for Love Letter. So there's definitely some balance between, making your game just have lots of stuff in it and making, a game that feels like a full package. And I think what they're going for with a micro game is almost like they want it to be stripped down. And I don't want the game to feel stripped down. To me, Love Letter doesn't feel stripped down. It just feels like the entire game system is complete in what they offer you, as opposed to this could have been more than it was. I honestly don't think that they should add anything to Love Letter necessarily.
Right. And then when they did that, I haven't played it, but I know there's this premium edition which has like twice as many cards and a whole bunch of extra powers and stuff. And I was like, I don't really have any interest in that. Like, and I think it's for the reason you've just said. It kind of felt right, just the size it was, and I don't feel the need to try and turn it back into something that it wasn't. So, yeah,
absolutely. So regarding one that we haven't talked about yet, a micro game that you'd mentioned earlier, and I almost struggle even calling it a micro game because of how many different versions there have been of it. But I am very interested in the game Coup, because that is one that does have like that sort of next level of play almost. And it even has like 2 to 4 players. It's not just necessarily a 6-player game. Coup is one that has had the expansions. And do you have any experience with Coup or how it works with expansions that have been added, or with, because there's been like 2 different types of expansions even.
Yes, I've played one of them. And it's another one where it's another game where I've played all my games of it with the original version, which I got at that same Essen that I got Love Letter, and I've never really played with the one that came along and sent it into space and all that kind of stuff. So my experience is with the original. Yeah, right.
Was it a Brazilian game at first?
No, the original version. Well, he's a guy called Ricky, lives in New York, but then he licensed the game to a bunch of different countries to do different art with it. So there's a really cool looking Brazilian version. There's a French version. There's there's tons of different versions, and they have some really, really interesting different art styles, which is really cool. And I don't really like the Resistance themed artwork that much.
It's so disgusting, man. It's just like a bunch of people with like resting bad person face. It's not what I want to say. I obviously I'm trying to keep this school appropriate and everything, but like, it's a lot of. I feel like it's almost like a bunch of futuristic people that are doing their best to evoke the Kalis Nightmare King box.
Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't really keen on that whole. I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's the exact same thing as Love Letter. It got taken from this quite characterful original version and then put into a universe of some publisher. We were talking about the Tempest universe, and then Coup got put into the Resistance universe, and I wasn't really keen on either. But anyway, the original question, I have played a bit with the Reformation expansion, which it's quite nice because it doesn't add very much. It's just a little extra thing on top of the basic system. But I don't have a lot mostly I've just played the original base game.
And then they came up with that next expansion that was originally from Guatemala. And I actually teach Spanish here. I don't think I said that before, Martin. I teach Spanish here in the United States, and so a lot of my education was about like specifically the sort of like revolution, the coup that happened in Guatemala, and it was to me it was a really interesting concept that this was like, you know, what they'd chosen to make this expansion. But really what they did to the game is they made it so that you're basically shuffling up dozens of cards together that all have these different abilities, and then you don't necessarily know what cards are available. So there were some ways, I think, in which Coup had a bit of a more solid mechanical basis. Not all the time, because Coup definitely involves some direct interaction. But it had more of a, I don't know, I feel like Coup, you could just kind of delve a little bit deeper in than Love Letter. And I think you've kind of verbalized that like if you're trying to do that to Love Letter, you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah, I think Coup's more of a, there's more psychology, more bluffing to it. Love Letter is pretty, there's those little scraps of information we talked about, but
the hardest thing with Coup is telling people that you can do whatever you want, just don't get called on it.
Yeah.
It's like, look, can I do this? But I don't have the card. Okay, that's the game.
I almost feel like Coup doesn't even feel like a micro game though because of it. I feel like Coup is its own. There's already been a Longview episode just about Coup. So I mean, talking specifically about Coup with micro games almost feels like are we sure that we're talking about Coup? Is it just small games? Are micro games just how big their footprint is, or is there something conceptually that makes it a micro game? Like if I'm playing a version of Love Letter that includes cards that are each printed on a piece of cardboard, you know, like it's the size of a player mat in Terra Mystica, is it still a micro game?
Oh, we're getting to semantics now because you're getting to the whole debate about game weight, which such a crazy debate anyway. So
it's because TC is a war gamer, and most of his games involve so much randomness that your decisions don't matter. Ooh, did I just say that? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Well, if you have no tactical ability, then it looks pretty random. No, but seriously, like we see micro game, you can what actually designates a micro game? Is there like a cutoff? Is there like so many cards, so many components? Is a certain size box? I mean, who knows?
That's part of the decision. I want Martin to tell us, because that's what he's here to do. TC, I'm not asking you. I'm asking Martin.
Okay, Martin, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think we talked about some of it already. I think the sort of the number of components has got to be in there. You know, I think really once you get beyond about, say, 20 cards, then you're just into the realm of a regular card game. So I think where Coup and Love Letter both were quite distinctive was they were under that, you know, like 15 or 16 cards, and because that gave you that ability to kind of try and figure out where each of those cards might be, and you know, that sort of play with information, and that's what it means to me, I guess. So it's partly the components and partly the kind of spirit of the game, which is why I don't think something like Sail to India or other ones we talked about don't feel so much like microgames. But I don't think you can, you know, I don't think it's ever a hard and fast definition with these things. It's like, you know, people argue all day long about what is the definition of worker placement or any of these terms, you know, and it's like it's a little bit, it's always going to be a little bit nebulous, I think. But
I think that for me, a successful micro game makes the component, the small amount of components, a strength as opposed to a limitation. And I think that precisely is where Love Letter sits. Like it's you know, I don't feel any sort of limitation as a result of it. As a matter of fact, the fact there's only 16 cards makes it easier to teach and easier to track. And those are the two main things that I'm looking for when I'm going to bust out Love Letter to teach a group, you know, to teach it between other games. Whereas for Sail to India, it's like, oh, this is an interesting system, I want more. It's a limitation. So to me, that's where I would draw the line between a micro game and a and a game that's a small game that wants to be more than what it is. And I think it still is very nebulous and gray, like we said.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, TC? Or would you like to talk about war games some more? No? Is there any micro war games?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I remember way back in the day, like, remember Ogre came back in like we were talking with Martin earlier, like TSR and some other early games, released war games in like little bags, you can just get them off the shelf. Like Ogre first came out that way before it was like that massive freaking $400,000 Kickstarter insanity. I have like some of the GMT magazines, the CS3I come with little micro war games. Like Mark Herman did one that was pretty fun.
Mark Herman did one.
Yeah, they're just little. It's just like a sheet of paper and some chits, and you just run with it. But I don't know if I'd call those micro or not. I just call them like an addition to getting a really cool magazine.
Wow, that's an interesting distinction to make there, TC.
Yeah, I don't know, but
Do they have a BGG entry?
They were. You were talking about microgames having only like so many components, and you throw in one of these games with like a whole sheet of chits, and I think that it's not micro at all. I do remember way back in the day, one of the more interesting type of war games I ever bought was I was collecting Dragonlance modules because I was running a Dragonlance campaign on the old Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, and one of the modules was a war game where you're playing the armies, and it just came out of nowhere, and it was like the same format as a module to do a role-playing game.
And this came in a magazine.
It was like you remember the old modules you got? They were like $12, and they all chained off each other and told a story.
Okay.
Am I dating myself by saying this?
CC, I don't think you're dating yourself, at least not with me. Maybe Martin knows more than I do, but I'm not familiar with like many magazines at all. I think when you said the term magazine, you dated yourself.
Okay. But some of these modules are like magazine sized, and I was running a Dragonlance campaign. I'm always looking forward to get the next one so I can finish the campaign, keep it going. And one of them was called Dragons of Glory, and I opened it up. I'm like, oh my God, it's got chits and counters, and it's a war game. And it was my literally one of the first war games I ever played, and I thought it was fantastic.
Cool.
So, I don't know if you call those micro or not, but it was pretty cool.
I think that's an interesting, like the games that would come for free in a magazine, what type of distinction is that?
Yeah.
And I honestly think though, if a game is worth its weight or worth adding your own components to, it's probably not going to come in a magazine. I'm not saying I've played any of them, obviously, but the fact that you were able to find something in that the module that you'd purchased, TC, is really interesting to me. That it took such a departure. So there's definitely, without having components, you can have quite a bit of game there. But then in a lot of those things, like you said, TC, they're asking you to supplement with your own components. So, I mean, obviously, if I just come out with a map and I say, all right, you need 500 miniatures, just use Warhammer, use all the Warhammer miniatures, and here's my rules, and here's a map. Is it a microgame? Of course not. Of course not, because I'm using some existing system. The complexity is too high. I think that we've pretty much answered, what is it that we are looking for in microgames? Not necessarily what is a microgame. Obviously, you're arguing semantics at that point, and TC loves arguing semantics.
Well, the whole weight thing just is hilarious to me on a lot of reasons, but we won't get into that here.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. Axe to grind here. Martin, did you know that people on Board Game Geek consider Kingdom Builder to be a weight of like 1 point something? It's like 1.7 or 8. And to me, it's ridiculous that I go to the page for Arkham Horror and its weight is more than Kingdom Builder when I can't remember making a decision that mattered in Arkham Horror. Yeah, bam, TC, take that.
Well, yeah, but it's the people that say we'll have one card in Kingdom Builder. You have no choice. So, I mean, what do they know?
True. Yep. TC,
Yes,
he
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
looks
Yes.
like he's sitting there like, why?
I'm
why am I
holding
with
my
this
tongue. We're
guy?
talking about Love Letter, and I'm very happy talking about Love Letter's a great game. It's awesome. People should play it. Yeah, it's a microgame, whatever you want to call a microgame. I think we can call it a microgame at this point.
I love you so much, TC.
You know,
Okay,
I
I'm
just
sorry,
played a
Martin.
game where I played a battle. It was just number comparison. Okay, I was like, what the heck kind of battle was this? But okay, we're not gonna go anywhere near that. We're just talking about Love Letter and be happy. Love Letter's great. No, I don't know. It's you said micro war game, and I don't know if anybody out there could name one. I'd be interested to see what it is.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really interesting point, though, TC. That like Martin had referred to that micro games back in like the '80s meant just basically a war game that wasn't on the complexity of like ASL.
some insanity.
Yeah. So it's meant a lot of different things, but I think in the modern definition, I think that we've kind of covered most games that I would consider to be in the public's eye, and ones that at least that I'm familiar with. And if do you guys have anything to add to the Love Letter or micro game discussion at this point? Would you like to? I'm going to leave it to you here, Martin. I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot here, just to close us out. You know, like what about Love Letter keeps you coming back after all this time?
It makes me laugh. And that's the main thing.
Yeah. I think that's why I like the Munchkin one the most, because that one makes me laugh the most.
Yeah, that would make so much sense, man. I almost cracked open my copy of Munchkin. I actually did. I took off the shrink, but I wasn't quite to the point where I could take the shrink off the cards. They're still in shrink. But like this, you know, I opened this and I was like, I'm not going to be able to give this as a gift.
No, sure you are. See, it's a well-worn game. We played it a lot. See, we played it and I know it's good. Here, take it. You can even sign it.
Well, I think you've captured it right there, that it's able to keep making you laugh because of the cleverness of the system, because of the meta that develops in your group, because it's able to make more out of 16 cards than you thought possible.
Yeah.
That's Love Letter and Microgames and this episode of The Long View. Thank you guys so much for participating in this discussion. And Martin, I can't wait to have you on again here to talk about whatever is next in the line. And you know that at some point, we're going to have to like give you a prize or send you a postcard or something when you hit 10, right? Because this is either 7 or 6 or something. But when you hit 10, I'm pretty sure that's some sort of Longview benchmark.
Yeah. We definitely want to have you back on, and we'll see if I can't salvage this one. I might have you back on again to talk about Love Letter.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. I'm hoping that it's not tied to my connection. I'm so sorry for listeners, mostly to TC, also to you, Martin, about my connection issues. It is strange. At least they've been holding up for now. And yeah, I hope that this never happens again. I really am sorry, TC.
Like I said, if we need to re-record it, that's fine. We'll just get Martin back on. It'll be awesome. Like I said, I like doing this, just meeting new people, so it's fantastic. I don't care what this sounds like after I finish editing it. I
agree with you though, TC. Yeah, it really is great to, you know, as being a host of the Long View, that's one of the perks is getting like we get different people on all the time, and it's people who are always passionate about whatever we're talking about. And that to me is just absolutely infectious. So Martin, I thought I was going to come to this episode and be like, no, I'm picking this game apart. And then as soon as you said people that pick the game apart are missing the point, I was like, oh my God, he has beat me. He has defeated me without even knowing that he was up against me. It is great. Truly, sir, you have won. You have won, and you have converted me to your side. Congratulations. So, no, I can't wait to have you on again, and that'll be an excellent episode. It might be about this same topic. Who knows? Hopefully not. Hopefully we're able to salvage something out of this. If not, then we'll let it simmer for a while before we come right back. Because otherwise,
I'll just post the shortest ever Longview episode. That might
it's on Microgames.
Be a lot of fun.
Perfect sense. It's thematic.
This is 5 minutes. It's great. It's over.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Long View. Thank you guys for being here. And catch us on the next episode of The Long View.